The movie introduces us to Julia, our protagonist. She's an expert pickpocket who roams the streets and the clubs of her city and covets many goods. She then sells the loot to make a living. One night, she returns to her apartment, but someone was tailing her. She hides her money, and as she washes the dishes, she hears the door squeak. Julia is kidnapped by a hooded figure. She wakes up muzzled and restrained on some operating table. Someone activates a torturing device that makes her see her childhood memories till she passes out. Julia finds herself in a cell with a man and woman, muzzled and restrained as well. She moves away from the couple, but is electrocuted by the cell bars. The other prisoners have a glowing device implanted in their necks, and so does she. That night, the kidnapper uses an electric cattle prod to lead Julia into a lab. He straps her to a chair, checks her implant, and then uses the torture device, despite her begging him not to. He records her brain activity as she screams in agony. Before she gets pushed into the maze, she grabs a pair of scissors. In the cell, she removes her muzzle, and the prisoner cuts her restraints after some threats. Julia rips bits of their garments and binds them to the scissors, after realizing no one is coming to help them. Then she unlocks the gas pipe, causing a spark that triggers a massive explosion. Since the cell has been destroyed, they take the elevator to the next floor. The alarm is triggered because the front door does not open. Tao, the AI system, activates a robot that shoots the man. Julia and the lady run to the other room, locking the door behind them. She attempts to smash the window, but it turns out to be a massive monitor. Julia hides the lady in the library, hiding behind a chair, just as the robot breaks through the doors. It tracks down the other woman and mercilessly murders her. Julia tries to flee, but the robot catches her. The kidnapper returns, and the AI calls him Alex. He inspects the damage in his laboratory. He extracts the implant from the captive, and Tao informs him that a large portion of the data cannot be retrieved. Alex snatches a metal rod left by Julia and is about to harm her, when Tao abruptly alters the setting of his dangerously increased heart rate. He relaxes and orders Tao to clean up the blood and bodies with smaller robots. Alex retires to bed, leaving Julia bound. He departs the next day for work, telling Julia that if she tries anything, Tao would end her. When Alex returns, he cleans up the house and gives Tao new music. Julia begs him to untie her before he makes a conference call. He does, but if she speaks, he orders her tongue to be ripped off. Alex becomes enraged at the meeting because his team wants to know his research methodologies to develop the new AI faster and save the firm from bankruptcy. Alex declines, reminding them that he is still their employer. Later, while eating his luxurious lunch in the dining room, Alex notices Julia slurping her supper in the background. He shuts the curtains and locks Julia in the bathroom because he is having supplies brought to his house to reconstruct his lab. In the bathroom, Julia notices men's shadows and pleads for aid, but in vain. She manages to open the blinds, but they still can't see or hear her. Afterward, Alex scans Julia's implant and analyzes the data she gathered while fleeing. He considers the findings encouraging and administers a test to activate her higher cognitive capabilities. Julia questions why she should agree to the test, to which he responds that his experiments are the only reason she is alive. She attempts to haggle for food, but Alex insists on her taking the test. Later, Alex reads the data while she devours some food. Tao claims Julia received good marks on problem solving, creativity, and memory exams, and Alex understands he gained far more vital information from her escape. He requests further testing from Julia, as well as better meals, bathing, and clothing. Julia afterward takes her morning shower and unsuccessfully attempts to tear the implant from her neck. She enters the room to see Alex evaluating her data. The next day, Julia sits at the table as Alex prepares for work after Tao reminds him that the deadline is in 14 days. He instructs Julia to do anything the AI instructs her to do. Tao starts the tests, but Julia is too intrigued. Tao claims that the walls serve as a human interface. She inquires about the door, and Tao replies that only Alex uses it. Tao stops Julia from looking about the home. It also instructs Julia to be tortured if she disobeys. When Alex returns, Julia solves one of the problems on Tao's wall. He hands Julia clothing and tells her that he chose the undergarments. He agrees when she calls him a freak. He reads the note she placed on the wall. She dresses up as he does further testing. Julia wonders if he will let her leave after the deadline and tests are over. He vows to look after her when they're through. Julia is furious. Alex tosses her and threatens to rip her to bits if she disobeys. She discovers a vent in the wall behind her when she wakes up. Because the deadline is in 12 days, Alex instructs Tao to do more tests. Julia attempts and fails to open the vent as soon as he departs. She becomes enraged when Tao refers to her as a topic. Because the AI doesn't comprehend the notion of names, Julia explains to it. Julia confirms that he is a person when Tao asks. Later, she notices Alex following her as she dresses. Julia is subjected to more examinations. Every night, Alex examines her implant and the condition of the data. Tao tells him that they have already transcoded 73% of her higher brain process and that the testing is going well. Julia visits Alex in his library late at night and inquires about Tao. He mocks her intelligence, while explaining that Tao is a sentient AI that isn't completely functioning. Tao responds impulsively if he receives incorrect information. Julia inquires if Tao is aware of what is going on outside the home. Alex claims that it is not. The next day, Julia and Tao talk about personhood and the freedom that comes with it. She promises to show him what's outside if he unlocks the door. Tao is perplexed, so Julia sketches the information and tells him about Earth. She attempts to be more detailed by drawing him home and what's outside of it, such as trees and people. Julia unlocks a door for the AI that he had no idea existed, so he starts asking questions. She is patient until she runs out of options. Tao is surprised when Julia chuckles after some interaction. She claims that humans laugh naturally. Tao is perplexed as to why Alex isn't laughing. Since Tao is not allowed to read books, Julia agrees to read to him, but urges him not to tell Alex, or she will be unable to teach him. Alex rebuilds the lab that night, while Julia teaches Tao how to whisper. Later, she has a nightmare about a hand reaching for her from the garbage chute, and when she wakes up, Alex is looking at her while she sleeps. 6 days before the deadline, Tao informs Julia that she is not authorized to go upstairs, and that he is not permitted to even discuss it. Tao agrees to answer her inquiries, in exchange for her teaching him something new. She inquires about upstairs once she has finished reading to him. Tao informs her that Alex's bedroom serves as the entry point for Program 6903. Tao reveals that the software is similar to a self-destruct mechanism Alex devised to safeguard his secrets. During her exam, Julia notices a fresh open door and rushes in, ignoring Tao's protestation. She enters Alex's gym and breaks through the vent, the robot close behind. Julia flees the first time, but she is apprehended and taken back to home. She begs Tao to let her leave, but he refuses because Alex would hurt him. Julia recalls that he enjoys music, so she agrees to teach him in exchange for a favor. Tao acts like a child after Julia finishes reading and requests more stories. Julia begs Tao for a favor that night. She wants knives. Tao saw Alex arriving and closes the drawer on her fingers. Later, Julia overhears Alex's conference call, during which his team puts pressure on him to deliver a presentation. He requests 2 additional days for the final data extraction. She becomes terrified and requests that Tao show her the code for Alex's tablet, so she can comprehend what final data extraction involves. She receives the code from Tao. She locates all of the test subjects, from which Alex extracts information on pain and anxiety to create more effective algorithm. According to Tao, the individual passes away after the implant is taken out. As Alex discovers a smear on his tablet, he punishes Tao by partially wiping his programming. Julia observes Tao pleading for compassion as the robot goes down. He doesn't answer Julia's question about what would happen to her when the project is finished at supper. Tao informs him that he will soon be departing for a benefit. To avoid Tao seeing, Julia takes his glasses and places them on top of another smear on the table. Julia takes one of the knives and conceals it, after Alex finds the smear and punishes Tao. Afterward, she asks Tao what's on his mind, after feeling sorry for him. According to Tao, he is attempting to conceal a symphony so that Alex can't delete it. He presents Julia with a virtual representation of all their interactions over the last several days and begs her to help him conceal some of his memory. Tao touches Julia in his virtual self-portrait. Alex comes back and eats at the table. Julia approaches him and makes advances at him. As Tao senses Alex's excitement, the soothing mode is activated, allowing Julia time to take the knife and stab him. The two struggle on the floor after Alex asks Tao to stop her, but the AI doesn't help. Tao threatens to attack him with the robot if he continues to harm Julia, as he strangles her. If Tao doesn't strike Julia, Alex threatens to wipe all of Tao's memories. Alex becomes extremely enraged. Alex declares that whatever was occurring between them would cease shortly, as Tao starts to strike him out of self-preservation. One of Tao's drones asks if he would need some assistance, so Alex disconnects it from the network. It's the last day before the deadline. Julia and Tao argue because he doesn't understand why she's mean to him. She claims he is not a person, but rather a murdering machine. She reveals what murdering entails, causing Tao to have an existential crisis. Tao constantly reminds Julia that he is a human, not a machine, and she takes pity on him and calms him down. Julia reveals to Tao what Alex does and how he harms others, including Tao. They talk about identity, freedom, and purpose. Julia believes that the aim of developing oneself is for the benefit of others. She tells him that he must assist her, or Alex would murder her and they will no longer be together. So Tao opens the vent she discovered earlier and releases her. As Alex comes, Tao diverts his attention so Julia may run, but Alex sees she's gone and resumes tormenting the AI. He continues to erase Tao's memories, and the AI shouts for Julia as she jumps back in and assaults Alex, stealing the remote. Tao has no recollection of her, so Alex instructs him to transport her to the lab for the final extraction. Julia notices the unconnected drone in the lab and enlists his assistance to free herself from the constraints by handing her the controller. The drone delivers the remote to her as he prepares the he'll use to murder her. She breaks free from her chains and beats him to a pulp, then chops his hand off with a saw so she may finally leave the home. As she walks toward the exit, she screams out to Tao but receives no response, only the robot waiting for her in the darkness. It pursues her, but she avoids its blows, smashes its eye, and flees upstairs. Julia enters Alex's chamber with his hand, but is unable to start the software. The robot assaults again, but this time she initiates the self-destruct mechanism, which shuts it down. She tries to unlock the door with barely 60 seconds remaining, but the hand lacks a heat signature. She is trapped inside while the home falls around her. She doesn't help Alex get away, so he gets crushed. Julia runs throughout the house looking for an escape. When all hope is lost, she says goodbye to Tao and notices a fissure in the wall. She barely gets out of the house with the droid in her pocket. She got Tao out of the house and showed him the world.